Welcome back, everybody, to now the 19th episode of the Wildcat Wire. I'm Nate Thomas, and I got Jake Janisek. And last night we saw the end of the Nebraska college basketball season with Creighton picking up their loss in the NIT quarterfinals. And we had quite a bit of events going on yesterday inside of Nebraska basketball. So I think we're going to start off first with Creighton. We'll just kind of run through that a little bit more quickly, and then we'll get on to the Nebraska Cornhusker situation. But what a game that was for Creighton.
I mean, I would say, yeah, what a game was it. So basically the first half, I'd say Creighton played pretty well.
They were okay. Besides the 12 turnovers, that whole game, they had an opportunity to put TCU away multiple times. Mm-hmm. And you had 15 turnovers in that game. I don't think they deserved to win, shooting 36%.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like when they kind of got up 23-18, they had a chance to kind of spread it. They ended up kind of being able to take the lead at half, and then start of the second half, you just knew it was just kind of done.
I had the feeling it was going to be one of those nights at the start of the game. Because TCU, they came out, they hit, they had a couple of open threes, they missed them. And then we go down, we score a basket, but I just had that feeling, this is not going to be a very good shooting night. I looked over and I told my mom, I'm like, this is going to be a 1-for-20 3-point shooting night. It's going to be, try and grind through this as much as they could. But the turnovers is what killed them the most. And I think...
well, I would say that 16-0 run really killed them at the start of the second half.
Yeah, I mean...
It's not good to, in 4 minutes, to let a team score 16 points on you without you even scoring anything.
What is his name? Kuat Noi had 25 points for TCU, 6 of 11 shooting from 3. So, I mean, he led the scoring for TCU. And then Mitch Ballack led the scoring for Creighton. I mean, Martin Krompel's injured for most of the second half. I mean, it was just an overall kind of a struggle night for them because they didn't shoot the ball that well, which I think you kind of expected when you go on the road against TCU like that. Jamie Dixon usually has some pretty good, solid defensive teams. And TCU hit a lot of their shots that they deserve, that they need to make. Creighton didn't play good enough defense in that second half to win the game.
So basically, both teams in Nebraska end their season by the hands of TCU.
In Fort Worth. So not very good. Nebraska
doesn't really like that place anymore.
I know you have some pretty strong opinions on TCU, though.
I mean, for me personally, TCU, they had about, I'm pretty sure they had 5 quad 1 wins. They had a 48th strength schedule, which isn't great.
But it's not terrible.
I mean, it's not terrible. And especially, in a pretty good Big 12, I would say, this year. And they weren't able to get out of it. Most people in the bracketology had them in the first 4. But, I mean, I think they would have been in if it wasn't for what Nate likes to call it, them dirty bid stealers.
Them dirty bid Steelers, a.k.a., your Murray State, your Oregon, or St. Mary's. I mean, those teams like that just
kind of let you out. They probably would have been if not. But they are definitely showing TCU that they feel that they should have got in just because they're playing at a really high level right now. Then you wouldn't see a lot of teams do when they're just left out of the tournament. Alabama, they lost their first game to Norfolk State. And, this doesn't seem like they wanted to really be there. But you can tell TCU wants to be here. They want to prove that they could have been a team in that field of 68.
Yeah, credit Jamie Dixon. I mean, his first season, they made the NIT, and they wouldn't want it. I mean, they made the tournament last year. His third season now at TCU, and they're in the NIT semifinals. So, obviously, he wants to get his team going for postseason play because they already have, one postseason championship in 3 seasons that he's been there. Otherwise, Creighton's finishing off their season now, 20-15. What are your overall thoughts about it?
I mean, you can't be disappointed with the season. You can't be mad at Greg. This team that was favored to finish 9th in the Big East, and they came out, showed that their young talent is really good. They have really good shooters. Marcus Zagorowski, he's going to be one of those players that we're going to remember for a long time when he leaves here. I think he's going to be the second coming of Grant Gibbs kind of player. But, I don't know. just like I think he's going to be a really good player. He's a lot of potential. Tyshawn, he's only a sophomore, but he might leave for the draft next year. Still a ton of potential. Martin Crumple, going to be a senior. He's going to be really good, even though he's 25. But there's a lot coming for this team next year, and I think they're definitely going to be ranked in the preseason top 25 and going to be a team that could do some damage in the Big East. Could be maybe even favorite, like, at like kind of the top of the half of the Big East.
My only problem that I saw with Creighton a lot this year was consistency. You had good runs and bad runs of games.
But, I mean, they're still a young team. Like, they're still young. They have a year under their belt now. I feel like you have to, with those long, consistent losses kind of thing, you can't just completely blame it on Coach McDermott. I think you have to look and say, hey, they were still a young team and favored to finish ninth in the Big East. Like, you can't just expect them to do amazing in their year when they were supposed to suck this year.
Yeah, I mean, when I said, like, consistency, it was, like, the run of games. Because, you have a loss where you're playing good, but then you have a loss where you're playing against, St. John's, which is an easily beatable team, where you just played, like, absolute garbage. I think that's kind of the sort of thing that they need to start sorting out. Because you have these games where, you're shooting, like, 50% like Gonzaga, but you're still giving up 106. You have a game where you're shooting 36% against TCU, which is, a team that you realistically could beat, where you also had 17 turnovers. It's just kind of the sort of things like that. They're still a young team. They have some bugs to work out. I don't know. At this moment in time, I don't know where you can say their ceiling is for next year, but, it's arguably going to be in the top half of the Big East. The Big East is looking at, another kind of down-ish year with Villanova losing their two best players. I think the only team that you can really say that is going to be, top is probably Marquette, because they don't have any seniors.
I think Creighton might, this is just my opinion, I think Creighton might have a chance to be favored to finish second or third in that conference.
Yeah, mainly because of how young that team is. And I think one player that I want to say to look out for next year is Denzel Mahoney. This guy's coming in averaging, 15-plus points a game from, I think it was like southwest Missouri State. He's coming from an Ohio Valley Conference team. He's not bad. And he is a good scorer that can really add to the team. That might be someone that's going to start or come off the bench and provide you double figures.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there's a lot to look forward to, I would say, Creighton next year. I'm excited. I think they're going to be really good. I think they could be a team next year that I feel could maybe be, like, in a top 6 seed in the tournament if they can play at their full ability. Honestly, this year they had a chance. If they could have just won those close games, they could have easily been, like, a top 10 seed in the tournament. They were young, weren't able to get some stuff done. If they beat Xavier, they probably would have been the last 4 in, but just weren't able to do it. But still a lot to look forward to in this program. And now we're going to switch it over to a guy who's going to go home, hang out with his wife and kids and dog, and have a cool Coors Light. That was Tim Miles' final quote to the Nebraska media, as he got fired after 7 seasons, 116, 114, and 1 tournament appearance. Kind of say your thoughts on that.
Well, I think if Nebraska basketball wanted to change, it was now. Because you're coming off a season where you had some pretty high expectations, and you just weren't able to completely fulfill with them.
And it's the second time that Nebraska wasn't able to do that, as they were ranked in the top 25 in 2015 with Terran Petaway and Ty Webster, and just wasn't able to get it done. So this is the second time they had high expectations going into the year, had a really good season the previous year, and wasn't able to get it done. And I think that ultimately became Tim Miles' firing.
But yeah, I don't know how to feel, because Nebraska has always been, a type of 500 program. Tim Miles had 4 losing seasons in his 7th year. He's a 500 coach overall. Nebraska hasn't had, the rich tradition where, they haven't won 20 games in 19 of 21 seasons like Creighton has. They're not at the same level as, your Minnesotas or something. They have the potential to get to, a top half Big Ten team that can possibly reach, a champion status with the right recruits. Nebraska has a lot of talent right now, and the coaching staff. but they're just not there at the moment.
Well, I mean, I know you say, like, oh, you're always a 500 team, but that's not where Nebraska wants to be at. Nebraska wants to be better than that. Like, you just can't be happy with okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I've been seeing a lot is...
Because Nebraska has really good facilities, a lot better than a lot of programs in the country. They've spent millions of dollars on facilities, $1 million on a lot of stuff to try to elevate their basketball program, and it really hasn't really gotten them anywhere. So, like what Bill Moose said, you know, he wants to, like, be a team that, with their facilities and everything like that, can compete at the top half of the Big Ten. And I don't think it sounds like you just want to, like, settle with being okay.
I mean, I think the whole thing is, I've been seeing a lot of people say, you know, Nebraska deserves to be better. And, you know, where did, you know, a program like Duke start? Where did a program like North Carolina start? You know, they were 500 average teams, and then, you know, you're bringing Coach K, you're bringing Dean Smith, and now look, they're blue bloods of college basketball. It takes one hire, and it takes them to be able to recruit to get to a certain level. I think Nebraska can get there, but it has to be the right hire, and they have to get the right recruits. You know, coaching vacancy now inside the Nebraska program. Who do you think that they should go for?
Well, I mean, you already know who they're going to hire. I mean, it's kind of been written on the walls this whole time. Probably Fred Hoiberg, just because, I mean, he's been the person, and he literally has, like, a quote from sources saying, like, he feels like it just fits him. But Nate's really high on Buffalo's head coach, so say why you want him.
All right, so Buffalo's head coach, Nate Oates, I mean, he was coaching in high school basketball 6 years ago. He's hired by Danny Hurley as an assistant. I mean, not Danny, Bobby Hurley. Bobby leaves for Arizona State. Nate Oates takes over the program. In the 4 years he's there, he has 3 MAC championships, 97 games won, and he's one of the top offenses consistently in the country. And if you listen to Bill Moose's press conference yesterday, he said that he wants to be a high-powered offensive team that can shoot a lot of threes and score a lot of points to make the fans happy. I think if you want someone that's exactly that kind of style, you go with Hurley. I mean, not Hurley.
Hurley?
And Oates.
But, I mean, Oates did sign an extension, so that's going to be kind of hard.
Yeah, I think that's the real issue now of the situation was Oates just signed one 3 weeks ago. So it might be hard to try and convince him to come here, but, I mean...
Oh, I don't know if he'll come here because that's a big buyout for Buffalo. You know, they're still a MAC school. They can't really... It'll be hard for them to afford a whole buyout.
Unless Nebraska would pay the buyout.
Yeah.
I think that Nebraska could probably easily pay the buyout. He's under $1 million in his salary right now.
Mm-hmm.
His salary when I saw it yesterday was $850,000. So I mean, I would assume he's probably not getting that high of a pay bump, especially at a MAC school like Buffalo. So I don't think it could be that big of an issue for Nebraska to try and, you know, lure him here. But that extension is probably going to be kind of the coffin for it. Otherwise, I really don't know who else you want to point to because Moose said he wants to, you know, the situation of transfer still in basketball, you still want to have 4-year guys because that's how you build your program. That's how Nebraska football is building their program right now. You know, your seniors in Mick Stoltenberg and Stanley Morgan and Gerald Foster. Those are the guys who laid the foundation for success now in Husker football. You know, who's going to be those type of guys that lay the foundation for success in Husker basketball is going to be your 4-year recruits. You know, maybe someone like a Donovan Williams.
If he even comes, because, like, I don't know. Because he, like, put, like, a lot of recruits expressed their, I guess, disappointment in kind of them firing Tim Miles.
Yeah, obviously Miles was a key part in recruiting on that staff. He's a very likable guy. He just didn't win enough basketball games to say that coach of Nebraska.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I mean, everyone's kind of just on Fred Hoiberg because he's from here. His, like, parents live here. His grandpa used to coach. He literally, like, said it, like, just fits him. So, I mean, obviously it's probably going to be Fred Hoiberg, whether you like it or not. Like, I mean, it's kind of, would you say it's kind of been written on the wall for a while now?
I think it's a shoo-in. Mainly because, you know, you have the history. Hoiberg feels like he's at home here in Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
The fans love him. I mean, it's obviously the obvious choice, but I don't know. I just feel like Nebraska needs a fresh start, not bring in someone established. You bring in someone from like a mid-major school that can build up the program with them.
I mean, they brought Tim Miles from a mid-major school, and it just didn't work out. So I think they want to try to get a big name hire because they're in Nebraska, and they want to try to get there.
Nebraska, I saw this yesterday. Nebraska just has a duffel bag of money. They can bring in almost anybody they want to. So I think that's the nice thing that you have when you're.
So they can bring in Coach K.
Well, obviously you can't bring in someone from a high-end major conference school is not going to leave to come to Nebraska. I mean, you can try and bring in someone from a different Power 5 school, or, you can try and find someone out in the market. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, but, I mean, I think you're going to see in the coming days Fred Hoiberg. What do you think about his style that would fit Nebraska basketball?
Well, I mean, it's obviously he's going to have to start from the bottom down. Like, it's going to be kind of like a rebuild, kind of like Scott Frost is doing right now.
Because everyone is probably... If you're not a senior on that Nebraska team, you're probably going to want to leave, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of players are going to think about that. Fred Hoiberg, I mean, he just needs to get a style. I mean, he's not going to have his, like, perfect style right when he gets to Nebraska because he knows he's got to kind of play well with how the team is. I mean, obviously he likes to run a balanced team. I mean, he's gonna try to score. He's gonna play like good defense, kind of. But Nebraska needs to like score. Like with Tim Miles this year, the scoring droughts just became too. They just happened way too often, and that's something he needs to work on. Kind of helping his player get good plays, not just kind of try to do fast breaks and shoot like a dumb three. Kind of, no offense, but James Palmer did that a lot this year. Just kind of dribbled up and put up a brick, and. He's going to start from the bottom down. First thing he's doing when he gets to Nebraska, he's got to recruit Isaiah Roby. I think that's the one player that you really need on this team if you want success next year. And try to talk to the recruits you already have. I know Cole Rope already signed, but you still got to try to make him confident and still coming here.
Yeah, I mean...
Got to make Donovan Williams confident to still come here.
I think Jermaine Green from Western Nebraska Community College could still be a good pickup for them if he chooses to, continue on to Lincoln.
I think he said on Twitter that he just wants to see how the new hire is if he wants to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a tough situation for a lot of recruits that are thinking about coming to Nebraska because you lose the staff. It's the same thing what happened to Mike Riley. Mm-hmm. Saw a lot of guys decommit, and you saw Scott Frost practically make a new recruiting class in the span of 3 weeks. 3 weeks to 3 months from when he was hired, the December signing day to February signing day. Mm-hmm. So I mean that's obviously going to be like the situation Hoiberg has from now and beginning of April to you have one signing day left to the span of now October when you're about to start the season. So it's probably going to be a lot of international players, grad transfers. Redshirt transfers,
Yeah, this team's going to look a lot different next year.
You really can't. You don't know who's going to be on this team because there's not names out there where you can go out and say, oh, this name is obviously fit for Nebraska if Fred Hoiberg is hired as coach.
Yeah, but they need to find a way. They got to keep Isaiah Roby from him going to draft. I think Thomas Allen, he'll stay, but I feel like you still want to keep him because he's still a good shooter that you'll probably need on your team.
I mean, he's a starter this year. So.
I mean, he was a starter, but he got hurt. I mean, I think you have to try to keep players like Amir Harris, who has a lot of potential, on board. I know it's going to be you got to recruit your own players too, and just try to keep them on here. I mean, it's going to be a tough job for not just Fred Hoiberg, but any coach that Bill Moose decides to pick to come to Nebraska. It's going to be a challenging situation, but hopefully we can see some them getting better in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing. I think for Nebraska to pick their style, because right now Tim Miles had no distinctive style. Obviously, he's more of a defensive coach. The team was not great offensively. Nebraska's always main goal, was play enough defense to where you can score enough to get by them. I mean, Tim Miles is never a coach that was going to blow teams out. Creighton has more of a style where they're built to blow a team out, but they don't do it as often because their defense isn't good enough. I think if you're in Nebraska, you want to go with the high-powered offense. You want to bring the flair back. You want to set the tone by being high-flying, score a lot of points, make the fans happy, build up, some energy around the program, and that's what an offensive style would do for you.
Mm. But, there's a lot to look forward to in the Nebraska program in the next 7 to 14 days. A lot to look forward for Creighton. So, it's going to be exciting, kind of how they do this next year, kind of how they do in the off season, everything like that. But I think that's going to do it for us here on the Wildcat Wire. I'm Jake Janasek.
I'm Nate Thomas. We'll see you guys next time.